All right, so that was Robert Mirabal with The Dance. Before that, you heard Rick Dees and his cast of idiots with Discorilla. Before that, The Silver Convention with Tiger Baby. Before that, LaBelle with Lady Marmalade. Before that, Denise LaSalle with Do You Think I'm Sexy. Before that, Anika with Japanese Boy. All right, so that does it for me tonight. Tune in again next Friday at 9 for more disco jams. And you can also tune in Sundays at 2 for the Year in Eurovision, where we take a look at the best music Europe has to offer. And now I'm going to turn it over to the next show, a great show. And enjoy your life, everybody.
Cigarettes, cause it will stop I breath. Yes, yeah. I don't sniff coke, cause it will make I choke. All I smoke is the real.
And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Say What You Will. I am your this is our 11th episode, I believe. I'm your co-host, as always, Kason Smith, joined by my fraternal twin brother,
Wood Smith, another co-host.
Yes, and we have a very special guest with us this episode, Taylor Schlanger. How you doing?
Awesome. Thank you, Kason. Thank you, Wood.
So before we get into all today's topics, let me just briefly introduce our painting for the week.
Let's do the social media so they can know what the painting of the week is.
Oh, that's true. Yes. Go ahead.
So we're on social media. We're on Twitter and YouTube. We have a YouTube live stream. Our Twitter is Say What UGA. That's Say What UGA. We tweet out when we go live about an hour or maybe 10 minutes before. And I think we forgot this time to do that. But anyway, you can go there. We tweet out the live stream to our live YouTube live stream. And you can go on YouTube, search Say What You Will Show. That'll bring up one of our old live streams or our channel. And you can watch us live. Hit subscribe, little bell notification so you can know the minute we go live. I had it on my phone and I knew within 3 seconds we went live.
All right. And, of course, we also broadcast on the terrestrial radio of 90.5 FM WUOG Athens live from the Tate Student Center. But let me first introduce our painting of the week. This is a rather abstract painting that we've had for a while now, probably going on 2 years. It seems like it's something from Monument Valley. Kind of reminds me of, I think it's the Three Nuns statue. Yeah. Not statue, but a rock outcropping in Monument Valley. I believe we picked this up in Maine, didn't we? Or was it New Hampshire?
I have no idea. I forget where we're getting ours.
But it's a pretty interesting, very rough acrylic painting. The paint rather stands off quite a bit. It's almost a 3D effect. So quite interesting. But I'll be sure to move that in just a bit so that you can get a better view of all our ugly mugs as we discuss the topics for this evening, or night rather. So, before we get into our guest and his expertise, let's briefly talk about the big news this week of the beloved Alliance of American Football ending. So, Wood, why don't you start us off so we can all talk about that as I move the painting?
Okay, so last week it was last Tuesday evening, I remember. Yeah, because it was right before my OChem test. And those news went out that the billionaire Tom Dundon, who owns the North Carolina Hurricanes hockey team, decided he had funded the alliance several weeks ago. He pledged like $250 million that would fund them for like 3 years. Pledged that to them, became majority stake owner in the alliance, ahead of Charlie Ebersol and Bill Polian, the two founders. And he had been losing about $70 million since he put in the money. And for some reason, he decided to pull the plug. And the players found out they were terminated Tuesday. Everyone else was terminated Wednesday. And football is no more. Now, all the players various star players have been getting signed with the NFL. So that's good. But it still kind of sucks because we were about to go into the playoffs and championship, and that means the Orlando Apollos can officially crown themselves as the champions because they were 6-1 wins losses. So
Yeah, it's
they're not. I want to put it out there. They haven't technically folded because they say we're just going to pull back, keep a small contingency, and look for new funding. But I mean, who's really going to sign with them? They screwed the players over. I mean, they didn't provide plane tickets or anything.
yeah.
They said you're out by Sunday. So
Yeah, what do you think, Taylor?
I mean, definitely they didn't provide the plane tickets, and that on top of everything is just like
yeah, you're pretty disappointed about the thing
honestly,
shutting down.
The AAF was going to be like a new start to everything. So
Yeah,
but I mean, the NFL is just a big old monster. It's going to take over everything, anyways.
yeah.
So.
Of course, this kind of opens the way for the XFL.
the XFL
next
starts
year.
up next spring, 2020, headed by Vince McMahon of WWE fame. He just sold $250 million worth of stock in WWE. That's on top of another $250 million worth of stock. So he is dead set on making sure this time the XFL works.
Yeah, and they might. Who knows? I know there was some like internal friction about the AAF being in the way of the XFL, kind of.
Supposedly he was stealing their thunder.
Yeah.
But
I mean, not anymore.
Not anymore. Not anymore, that's for sure. All right, so that's disappointing, but life moves on as always. So let's get into the real meat of the discussion. We have our special guest, Taylor Schlanger, on with us, and he is a expert, I guess you could say, in... Well, I'll let you describe yourself. Well, first of all, before we get started, what's your major, your year, and all that generic stuff?
I'm currently a third-year agribusiness major over in the College of Ag. I plan on going and doing something in the marijuana and hemp industries, preferably to hopefully stay in Georgia. Honestly, I'm hoping that I'll get a good internship or maybe even a good job doing research or something. But that's enough about me. Honestly, let's get down to the meat of the topic.
All right.
he's an agribusiness major. He wants to get down to business.
Down to business.
Down to business. So I don't know if everyone knows, but this past week we had some major political sways. We had the passing of House Bill 324 and House Bill 213, which are the Georgia Hemp Farming Act and the Georgia Hope Act, which is the medical marijuana and the CBD potency hemp act. So essentially what this means is now Georgia is going to be the 33rd state to have a medical marijuana program where that involves production and cultivation. What happened was in 2015, we passed a law that allowed for people with certain diseases to get medical marijuana through a card system. Very limiting amount of people can have it.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it was there was sort of a issue where it was legal for them to use it, but there wasn't a legal way to really obtain it.
That's what I read.
Yeah, that's the loophole in the law. It was you cannot obtain the drug inside of Georgia. You couldn't sell it. No production of it. You couldn't grow it. And you couldn't transport it across state lines because that in itself is a federally illegal thing. That's trafficking. And so all these people who had medical cards and were granted by the state to be told, you can actually do this. This is good for you. Do this to make yourself better. And they were just told, no.
There's no way.
There's no way to do it.
You can have it. You just can't get it.
Exactly. And so that was righted this past, it was pretty new. It came out in February. But the Georgia Hope Act is really the big one that we're going to be talking about because it's the medical marijuana. And the Hemp Act, very similar to the Hope Act. They run pretty much... how they're written is almost identical for the most part. But
the hemp just deals with the low,
yes.
What is it?
The lower THC?
Is it THC or is it the CBD?
So THC is the psychoactive chemical that is in weed. And so THC is what we're looking out for when it comes down to the difference between hemp and marijuana. Currently, the United States federally has said that hemp is a 0.3 and under percent THC. Sorry, 0.3 and under THC percentage
Yeah.
within the weed, and that would be considered hemp or marijuana.
And I assume Georgia uses the same classification as federal, right?
Honestly, Georgia uses the 0.5% for its THC levels.
Oh, okay.
But since federal law usually trumps state laws in certain situations, the federal law is going to probably win out. But either case, low. When it comes down to marijuana, I mean, anything. If you're growing marijuana and you're growing hemp, there's clearly a difference in the THC percentages. Marijuana is around 20% THC within the plant, while hemp is 0.5%. I mean, that's dramatic.
So this bill, it passed the Georgia Senate, I believe, right?
So it passed both House and Senate.
Okay,
and
so it's now going to Kemp.
Yep.
And I assume, like, do they know if he's, like, what's their expectation? Is he going to sign it, or? So
actually, the bill was brokered in the last couple minutes of the session on Tuesday. It was brokered in by Kemp. Kemp himself came down, talked to both sides, and was like, "Let's bring this together." His statement to the press was, or I believe it was a statement from somebody in his office, but it was, I've heard so many stories of children coming up to me saying that this can help them, and it breaks my heart.
Okay, so it's guaranteed then to pass him because he was part of it.
Exactly.
Basically. Okay.
It'll be here by hopefully next week. We'll have it signed.
Wow. Okay. So what does this specifically do now?
So specifically, it allows for the Let's just go through it.
Okay.
Let's go through, because I have it right here, and it's a lot easier if we can just go through it. So in the first couple of sections, it names the law, and that's pretty simple. But then it gives the General Assembly, it talks about what Georgia sees THC, its medicinal properties as. And it talks about how there is a significant medical benefit to patients from low THC oil. And we can get into the science of that.
So it basically lays out its reasoning behind
it definitely
the reason they are passing this bill, I guess.
It's that's pretty much it. I mean, that's section. You killed section 2 right there. You nailed what section 2 is all about. A reoccurring theme, though, in the law that everyone really should be looking out for is it is adamant about there is going to be no recreational passing of anything in Georgia.
Yeah, I noticed that from some of the statements. I think there was a AJC article about it, and some of the representatives were real iffy on that recreational use. They were worried that there was going to be a larger registered patients pool, people registering just to get that marijuana.
And I feel like in this, at least, law that they've written up, it is, or at least bill, I mean, is they've covered those facts. They've gotten down to, like, okay, we're going to make sure that the doctors that are actually prescribing this stuff are, like, know who their patients are and are actually, like, legit. But it specifically states in there that they are deeply opposed, and those are direct quotes from the article, is deeply opposed to the recreational use of marijuana as a drug. So, and any low THC oil for that matter. And it just goes a little bit deeper, but a reoccurring theme, another people should be looking out for, is it is deeply invested in making sure that minorities, women, and veterans are all, I guess, seen in this law. There actually is many times in the law where it's like, if there's not at least 20% involvement of these people, like, we're going to shut it down.
Involvement? Like, what do they call involvement?
Like owning some part of the business.
Really?
Or, it's
So does this, I know it doesn't open it up entirely where, like, anybody can register and start growing it. How are they opening or beginning to open the door to the growing of?
So there is going to be 2 types of licenses for the production. There's going to be a Class 1 and a Class 2 license. The Class 1 is going to be for 100,000 square feet production and manufacturing of the THC oil. And the Class 2 license will be for 50,000 square feet and for manufacturing of the THC oil. And each one of those has its own fees. And that's pretty much the difference between it. There's going to be high security between for those people that want to be doing the manufacturing and production of these. but essentially it all talks about how there's going to be no artificial pesticides. I mean, everything has to be organic on this since it's going to be ingestible.
Pretty strict guidelines on how you grow
Very
it.
strict.
Yeah.
And on top of that, this is just you have to get in, and these are the rules that you got to kind of follow. They've set up a whole entire committee that will be, and a commission that will be going out and setting down even more rules and setting
Really?
out the outline. Yeah. This creates an entire, almost like division that's going to be making sure that it's from a tracking system is the best way to describe it. They're going to have a strong tracking system that can register from seed to sale, where every single plant, material, waste, I mean, there's
So a very
12 pages
very
almost on the tracking
regulatory
system.
intensive
Yes.
process it's going to
Very
be.
regulatory. I mean,
Which is probably going to translate to a quite expensive product, I assume.
well, it's interesting because you say that, but Georgia's working with a 5% low THC oil. You get 20% from marijuana itself. So instead of building a product and getting it up, and like if you go out to Colorado and they're selling pounds of this product for $1,000 or so, I mean, we need 1/4 of that product. So realistically, it could potentially be within reason. Have you all been to a local head shop and see that they sell CBDs?
No, I haven't,
and stuff?
no.
Well, they sell CBD currently in local head shops, and if you don't know what head shops are, they're essentially your smoke shop. I mean, they're just the little rinky-dink corner shop. It's nice. But they sell CBD federally. It's federally legal for them to sell CBD, and CBD is another cannabinoid that's in marijuana. It's just the non-psychoactive version. And that CBD has been, I mean, the Farm Bill allowed it to be passed a couple months ago, and people have been using it for similar medical properties for the THC.
It's got like a very, if I'm not mistaken, it's like a mild, like relaxing effect.
Yes, yes. So the bigger thing to like kind of remember about weed is there's something called the entourage effect when we smoke marijuana. It's not just the THC that will correct issues or THC is the only thing that will get you high.
It's not the only active component, I guess you could say, of
that's
marijuana.
Good. Yeah, definitely.
There are
There's
other
CBDs,
factors at play.
There's terpenes. The terpenes are actually what the medicinal factors are inside marijuana. That's what makes you become tired, sleepy, have that anti-inflammatory act. It's not the THC. The THC essentially does not bind to any receptors in your brain. The CBD does not bind to any receptors, but the THC does. CBD makes your receptor fire a different way, while THC makes your receptor fire, and that's the difference between CBD and THC, and that's why they're allowed. One just works with your body better, and one doesn't, I guess.
So now, does this law put a cap on the number of producers?
Yes.
So what's that looking? What's the cap looking at?
2 Class 1 licenses will be awarded through a scrutinous sealed bid type of
Application, I guess you could
thank
say.
you. Yeah, that's the right word. And then 4 Class 2
Okay.
license will
So
be
we're looking
given
at a
out.
total of 6 producers in Georgia.
Yep.
Now, will these be entirely private, or are universities looking at
So
doing
there
this
will be
as well?
also, it was actually stated in the law that there will be 2 universities that will be granted the rights to produce and manufacture the oil. And those 2 universities are our very own University of Georgia.
All right.
Fantastic. Go Dogs, right? And Fort Valley University. So there will also can be partnerships.
Will those
but
be part of the 6 or in addition to the 6?
They will be addition to the 6.
Okay.
But
I assume they won't be like selling for profit. They'll
they're
be more
only
like
for research.
research. Okay. Whoa. A little bit of a cord yank there, but we're good.
My bad.
Okay, so are they looking at any type of, well, I guess you said the licenses, each one has a specific limit on the amount produced, so we're looking at a limit on the total amount produced then as well, since each has a limit itself.
Yeah,
then.
per se. I mean, it's a limit on the amount of space that you're allowed to produce in. So if
Oh, so it's only a limit on the amount of space you produce in. It's not a
Yes.
limit on the actual quantity you produce.
yes, absolutely, it's only so you're
that's
allowed.
interesting.
If you can make a season grow every 3 weeks or something like that, I mean, your quantities will be huge. But
Huh. That's interesting.
yeah, it's definitely a interesting little aspect in the law. But I think they're trying to make it hard for a lot of people. It's only really going to be for big businesses
Oh,
that
yeah.
are going to get into it.
Yeah.
That's where hemp really comes into this discussion, because in the Farm Bill, which was passed this past February or so, the
Yeah,
federal
it's-
Farm Bill, not Georgia, it allowed for the legalization of CBD in a lot of these places, or throughout the United States, and that also allowed for the states to decide what their hemp grow programs are going to be like. And so Georgia and all these other states got to basically make these programs, which is Georgia's program is the Georgia Hemp Farm Act or something like that. And
Yeah.
and essentially it sets up a very similar set of guidelines for hemp production, but with less standards, not as much security, not as much regulation. And the biggest difference is the federal Farm Bill made it illegal to limit production on hemp within the United States.
Interesting.
So that means that farmers are allowed to produce it as much, but we are allowed to limit the manufacturing of the cannabinoid oil because it is made from seed extract.
So I guess we can segue that into the hemp.
But just one real quick question.
Yeah.
I had read that pharmacies would serve as kind of the dispensaries of this.
Yes.
Would they have to go through a licensing process as well to be a dispensary?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an entire section in here that the pharmacy board is going to be brought in. They will be solely responsible for licensing out dispensary licenses. There will be a couple rules that will be generally involved with that. But an interesting thing that I read in the law and how I'm going to take it, I don't know if this is how the law states, but it's how I read it and how I think it's going to be stated. Doctors are not going to be allowed to sell the oil. They will only be allowed to be given give their patients a list of dispensaries, and then they will have to go to these dispensaries to get the oil.
So the oil will not go through traditional pharmaceutical supply chain. I guess you can say. Well, let me rephrase that. For a doctor to prescribe a marijuana derivative product, it won't go through the normal chain that something like, I don't know, a painkiller would, where the doctor prescribes it, the patient goes to a CVS and gets it. It won't be handled that way with this, you're saying?
So marijuana is not a prescription drug. You can't write a prescription for marijuana. You can only recommend it to people, and then they can go and get themselves certified through the board.
So it's not okay.
Yeah, but a doctor can't just write,
So it's a
20 cc's of marijuana.
So it's
please."
completely different. It's completely different process than most
Yes, definitely.
prescriptions. Okay.
Essentially, you go in and you have to show that you have a need for this product. You have to show that you have a doctor-patient relationship. The prescribing doctor has to have a relationship with you, showing that it's not just like, oh, I came in one day and prescribed.
It's not one of these pain clinics. What they've been doing with the pain.
No, it's
medicines.
definitely you have to have a need. You have to have a showing of a need, and then the state has to decide if your need is worthy. Once the state decides that, they'll give you a card that will allow you to, or a caregiver, the ability to go and purchase this oil from registered dispensaries or potentially manufacturers either. It might be even that.
So I guess we can use this to kind of segue into the hemp part.
Definitely.
Now, I believe the hemp, is it a separate bill or is it the
Yes.
same bill?
It would be a separate bill.
Okay. So kind of go through that. How is that different than, and not how is hemp different from marijuana, but how is the hemp bill different than the other bill, I guess you could say.
Honestly, we should go over how hemp is different than marijuana.
Okay.
Hemp is the same plant as marijuana is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
People are, because this is a big thing, a lot of people don't understand the difference between the two yet. And it's kind of weird. Hemp is high CBD, high cannabinoid, low THC. It comes from the same genus, Cannabis sativa, as marijuana. Marijuana is high THC, low CBD, and that is the
like
trade-off.
the inverse of
Yes.
marijuana.
And that is all due to growing patterns in the past 50 or 60 years.
And now hemp is generally used for its fibrous qualities
Yes.
to make like it used to be make like rope and fabric and stuff.
Yes.
Now is it? I've never thought about this before. Is it actually a stronger fiber than marijuana, or do they just use hemp because it
Same
doesn't have
fiber.
so it's structurally they're the same.
Yep.
Huh. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Same fiber.
So nowadays, I guess they have like synthetic stuff for rope and all that. What do they use hemp for industrially now?
Hemp can be made into anything, man. Anything in the world.
But
I
like,
heard
what,
marijuana had
what
been
do
used
they
for
use?
anything.
But like, what do they? What's some current
Clothes,
products?
paper products, rope. I mean, it really is a very versatile product. It's a fabric is the best way to describe it. It is it's an extremely strong and versatile fabric, and that's why we have the difference between hemp, industrial hemp, and marijuana.
Yeah.
Industrial hemp is going to be stronger. Regular hemp is going to be for producing the CBD for the most part, and marijuana is for the THC.
So how does the this other bill? I assume it's somewhat more lax in some degrees, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming this. So could you just go through it real quick?
Yeah, it's similar. It's very, very similar to the marijuana bill. It was passed at the same time as the marijuana bill for the most part. Same day. It was also brokered by Kemp to try.
So
to
it was kind of
get
a
through.
package deal. These two bills together.
The whole point of the hemp bill was to give Georgia farmers a supplement crop. A lot of people don't know, but Georgia farmers have been hurting recently. We're doing well, but we've been hurting. And Georgia just is a great place to grow cannabis. It grows great down here. It's sunny, it's hot, it just loves it, and it's going to be a supplementary product for a lot of these southern farmers.
So what's the process if a farmer wants to grow this stuff? What's the application process for
Similar.
hemp?
So you're going to go through a different
Is there
commission.
still going to be only 6, or is that much?
Production is uncapped.
Okay.
So you will just have to pay your fines. There's more regulation on the seeds. Mm-hmm. There's going to be regulation on the product itself and where it goes after it leaves your place. And especially if you're producing hemp for the extract, the cannabinoid oil, because that has medicinal properties, and that is they want to have that tracked. They want to have a seed to sold tracking system.
So it's still going to have this intensive seed to product tracking,
Similar.
but not
similar-
quite as intensive.
So with the marijuana, they want to make sure that even the garbage of these plants is not getting taken home.
Wow.
Yeah. They're very intense on making sure. I mean, it states even waste.
I assume they can't be that close on this broader one because there's just no way to keep up with it.
Exactly, and that's kind of the problem you see with the writing of the bill. It's just there's like almost like an uncapped production. So
Yeah. Are they offering like crop insurance, special crop insurance on this?
That's interesting, yeah.
Because I know
What's the
in
finances of
South
that?
Carolina or North Carolina, they legalized hemp, and they had a bunch of people try to go out in these hemp fields and try to get high on the hemp because they thought it looked like marijuana.
yeah.
So obviously that may be that will be an issue in some areas.
Well, in the hemp fields, it might be a problem. And that alone might there should be cameras on the fields. I believe there was a security provision in the hemp bill, but for the marijuana bill, that will not happen. These
Yeah.
are indoor grown only.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, they will be greenhouse. And Unclear still if it's going to be the production will have to be done in the same building as where growing is done, where production or where production, where manufacturing of the oil is done compared to production. But it definitely will it has to be in the same state for the most part. We can ship in products through the university. We can ship in marijuana from government entities, but it's going to be interesting to see how the university handles this new research opportunity.
Yeah.
I know we have agribusiness finance, and our professor said that they could get into the research of the dean had recently said they could get into the research of marijuana, but they usually had to go through the dean first, talk to them. So it'll be interesting. Like
Tell you what, we are at the bottom of the hour. Wood, why don't you plug our social media real quick? We'll go to a quick music break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the future of marijuana research with universities and where we see the marijuana industry in the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Awesome. All right. So our social media, like Jason was saying, we have a Twitter and a YouTube. Our Twitter is SayWhatUGA. That's SayWhatUGA. We tweet out the live stream link. You can tweet at us throughout the week during the show, and questions, comments, we'll try to get to them during the show. And like I said, we tweet out the live stream link to our YouTube. We do a YouTube live stream. You can go on to YouTube, search Say What You Will Show. That'll pull up one of our old live streams or our channel, and you can go there, hit the subscribe, click the little bell notification. You can know when we go live. I did on my phone, on one of my other YouTube accounts, and I knew within 3 seconds that we went live. So, and you can watch us, and you can see the art, the painting of the week, and any other things we have.
Yes.
In the studio.
All right. So I decided to pick a song that'd be quite fitting for our discussion. So for our music break, here is Stephen Stills with Treetop Flyer.
I could be a rambler from the 7 Dial. Don't pay taxes 'cause I never file. I don't do business that don't make me smile. I love my aeroplane 'cause she got style. I'm a treetop flyer. I'll fly any cargo that you can pay to run. The Bush League pilots, they just can't get the job done. You got to fly down into the canyons, you don't ever see the sun. There's no such thing as an easy run for a treetop flyer. I fly low, I'm in high demand. Go 15 feet over the Rio Grande. I'll blow the mesquite right up off of the sand. Seldom seen, especially when I land. I'm a treetop flyer. Born survivor. People been asking me, where'd you learn to fly that way? He's over in Vietnam chasing NBA. The government taught me, and they taught me right. Stay down under the tree line, you might be alright. Treetop flyer. So I'm coming home, I'm running low and fast. I promised my woman this is gonna be my last. I get the ship down, I tie her fast. And then some old boy walks up and he says, hey son, we'll make some fast cash. The treetop flyer. Well, there's things I am, and there's things I'm not. I'm a smuggler, and I could get shot. I ain't going to die, I ain't going to get caught. You see, I'm a flying fool in an aeroplane. It's just too hot, I'm a treetop flyer. Born survivor. Usually work alone.
All right, we are back. Say What You Will is back, episode 11, live from the Tate Student Center, 90.5 FM. You can also catch us online on YouTube at Say What You Will Show. I am Kason Smith, joined as always by my fraternal twin brother,
Wood Smith, the other co-host.
and our special guest, Taylor Schlanger. So let's get back into it. We've covered the Georgia bills that have passed.
Regarding marijuana and hemp, for those that may
Yes,
be
medical
joining
marijuana
us.
and hemp. Now let's kind of segue into where you see the, I guess, marijuana industry in Georgia and I guess generally nationwide in the next few years, next 2 or 3 decades. I know you say you're looking at going into that industry as your career, so obviously you see potential for growth and expansion.
Definitely.
So obviously, with this passing and there being more wider usage and this research that's
And wider
being done,
acceptance of marijuana.
there'll be more exposure to marijuana and acceptance of marijuana. So I know in the bill it said we strongly oppose recreational usage,
Yes.
but you would be a fool to say that this doesn't at least hint at a possibility down the road and open the door for the possibility
Usually,
of it happening.
across the different states, you've seen the hemp come first.
It goes
as kind of a
hemp or medical.
medical marijuana, and then it slowly goes to.
So where
I
do you,
haven't followed it quite as
so,
Absolutely, yeah.
So what kind of timetable do you think we're looking at there?
Well, I want to start with this question to y'all. Do you think poppies are a drug?
Well, I know poppy seed, you could make opium from it, I believe. So
But do y'all think that's a drug?
I honestly haven't done enough research into it.
I don't remember if poppy seeds can actually affect you, but
So opium is the
I-
key ingredient in a lot of these opioids that are causing problems.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. is-
Opioids like OxyContin and all
Yes.
your
Major painkillers.
really strong
Yes.
painkillers.
And that's what this argument really comes down to is, do you see marijuana as the same thing as you see a poppy when we make poppies for opium and we produce opium so that we can make opioids? Do we see marijuana that way? And that's kind of where we are right now in the federal stance. Is we're kind of looking at it and we're like, clearly states have shown that it has medicinal properties. The Schedule 1 narcotic ranking on marijuana means that the federal government says that there is no medicinal value for marijuana at all. And as you said before, there's Hence, that's clearly a lie.
Yeah.
Clearly can help you, and clearly it has some properties that can aid in medicinal values. And so that's where I really see in the next presidential election, if it does not come by Trump himself doing it, with the dropping in the scheduling of marijuana. I definitely,
Federally.
yeah, federally. When that happens, it's going to be adopted. There'll be a little bit of fluster about what's going to happen. But personally, once that happens, I feel that marijuana itself will become legalized throughout the state for its medical properties. I find it hard that the entire United States will recreationally legalize marijuana. I believe that they will put that up to the state itself. I believe the United States itself will do a medical marijuana program that will be completely federally fine, and a recreational program done by the state.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think that the federal law is basically holding everything up.
Yes.
It does a lot
Because it's federal.
It's
It's
time.
federal
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
puts a lot of legal limbo
Yes.
as to, like in Colorado, it's legal, but federally it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's.
I mean, it's everywhere. Even Georgia now. It's
Right.
federally legal or illegal,
Yeah.
but legal in Georgia.
Yeah.
So I think if once they repeal it, I think that may expedite
Yes.
a lot of the recreational usage and legalization across the country.
Yeah. I'd say when did these Georgia bills go into effect? Like, when do they?
Effective as soon as they're signed, I believe.
So we're looking at like 1 or 2 weeks.
Hopefully.
Okay. So, would you say do you think you could see major progress in the field in the next like 5 years, or you think it's going to be like a decade before?
Well, actually, in this law, it even states that if they have not started producing marijuana after getting the license after 1 year, their license will be revoked.
Really?
So I highly suspect that by 2020, January 2020, we have full-fledged marijuana production facilities in Georgia.
That's interesting that they will revoke the license if they're not producing.
Yes, and that is strictly because there is only 6 producers going to be in the state, and it's almost like we learned this in class the other day, collusion. It's almost like,
yes.
I'll just drop out and
Credit to Dorfman.
yeah, credit to Dorfman right there.
Full disclosure, I'm not in that class, so
Yeah, it's like an inside joke. You don't know.
But essentially, I even forgot where we were. My bad.
The law wants to prevent any kind of businesses from getting the licenses and then not making
Yes,
it.
yes, definitely. And that would be almost like collusion. But
Yeah.
we don't want to say that, but it would almost be like collusion because they would just be like, okay, we're going to stop. Y'all just keep on producing and bye.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I see it, is they're going to revoke those so that the supply stays up and it can keep the price down. And again, we're working with only 5%, a fourth of the potential that these plants can produce. And we all know we're not going to waste 15%. We're
Yeah.
just going to water it down, you know?
Yeah. Now, where do you see the future of medicinal marijuana? Like, what's right now? You say obviously you have to go to these. The patient has to go and show a relationship with the doctor and all of this. Where do you see the end goal of medical marijuana? Of how do you envision the final iteration of a patient getting medical marijuana? In other words, do you see it getting to the point where it's like an off-the-shelf thing? Do you see it getting to the point where it's like a doctor writes a prescription and you go to CVS to get it? Where do you see that? Or do you think it'll always be something where you have to go through extra hoops?
Due to the psychoactive nature of marijuana and the THC, I truly believe that it will always be an over-the-counter medicine within the United States. You won't be able to, or not over-the-counter.
Prescription.
Prescription medication, and it will never be an over-the-counter medication. CBD, on the other hand, and for its medicinal values, I definitely believe it will be an over-the-counter medication as it is right now. It is an over-the-counter for the most part. But marijuana, just because it is psychoactive, it's almost like you wouldn't tell someone that's going to start seeing stuff once they take a medication that like they're going to be fine to just go get that from Walmart.
Now, now you say it won't be an over counter. Could it be something like controlled, like an over counter but super controlled, like Tylenol? Because I think Tylenol is used in harder drugs.
Well, the only thing is though, it's still over the counter. So
it's true. It's just they keep it behind the counter.
Yeah,
Our uncle's a pharmacist, so we have some experience with that.
I think you're right. I think you'll see it be something like I think they're called Schedule 3 narcotics right now, your hard painkillers.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It'll probably get to something like that where it could be a prescription, but it's still stays as a prescription. It never goes over the counter just because it's got those other elements to it.
Definitely. I mean, it all also will come down to where our research in marijuana goes. Maybe it turns out the THC isn't the miracle chemical that we think it is. Maybe THC is not what you need at all, and it's the terpenes that within the marijuana that are 100% causing these cancers and all these like Parkinson's disease to like be deterred. And if that comes around, then why would we even put the THC in the marijuana? I haven't done. I mean, I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not someone who does research with the effects of marijuana on the body. I just know from what I've read that it has medicinal properties in that sense. And the terpenes, though, are where the medicinal properties are. They allow for anti-inflammatory, and they allow for like lower blood-to-brain barrier penetration. I mean, when we start getting into technical terms like that, it really sounds like we're talking about science and like the human body and like biology, right? And I mean, it just sounds like that's going to be a lot better than THC one day, right?
Yeah. I wonder if this is getting out of my league really quickly, but I wonder if there's been any research into like synthetic versions of the effective compounds in marijuana. Has there been any look into that?
There is synthetic marijuana. We have synthetic marijuana.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
It is very bad for you.
Really?
Yes, very, 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 very bad for you. It's apparently more addictive. This is just from quick Wikipedia studies of like stuff like this, but like apparently more addictive, very addictive, and can cause like some issues. But essentially, just kind of stay away from synthetic marijuana is what I've been told.
Now, is that something just because it's a new product and they're cleaning it up, or you may not know. It may just
marijuana. Synthetic marijuana, I believe, has been around for a while. I believe it's just like a don't ask, don't tell type thing. You don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
The reason it's not in popularity is because the whole point of marijuana is it's not like we're synthesizing like other drugs like acid or like cocaine or like something. We're not bringing other products into this and creating a drug. We are growing it like a tomato.
Yeah,
it comes straight out of the ground.
You're basically breeding something that's natural instead of creating something synthetic.
Yes.
Instead of engineering, you are breeding, I guess you could say.
Definitely.
That's the distinction.
It'll be interesting because marijuana is starting to become, in the eyes of the public, like alcohol.
Yeah.
And like
I've
tobacco.
noticed that.
I mean, I'm only 21, so I have a limited, as far as like a perspective on the change in culture, I have quite a limited one, but just from what I've seen, it's been remarkable in the past like 5 years just how much of a
quick acceptance and normalization of smoking
marijuana. Yeah.
I mean, I would say a majority of people have started smoking within the past 5 years. I would say that
of those who smoke, you're saying most have started in the past 5.
I would say, yeah. I truly believe that's the call, or at least 10 years, because I know that's a little wider range, and I'm giving myself a little bit more like freedom to be messed up here. But like, if you look at it, like, if you look at the data, there's the people that have been smoking since like the 70s. There's the people who like smoked then stopped and like have started again. But then there's like this weird generational gap, like right in the middle, where there's like the baby boomers, everyone likes them. They didn't smoke a lot. They're on the lowest end for like the acceptance rates. And then you get to us and like our generation, the generation just before us, and they have really started picking up smoking. But generally in America, it's about 20%. 20%, 1 in 5 people actively smokes marijuana.
Interesting.
Now let's suppose it goes. If it goes legal, could that increase?
Legal. Well, what do you mean? Clarify here.
Recreational.
Okay.
Because
Like nationwide, you're saying. Okay.
In Canada, they legalized it. I think the whole country ran out of weed in about 3 days.
I think it was 3 days. Yes.
Yep.
So,
and that's actually an awesome little segue into federal House Bill 420.
Oh, yes.
Because
quote unquote 420, of course, doesn't matter to me.
Let me just do a brief note about the situation in Canada where they ran out in 3 days. One of the reasons they did, I saw a video. Wild. It was some type of like DJ party, and this guy had taken a leaf blower, and in the back end of the leaf blower, he had stuck this huge wad of weed.
Turned it on,
and he had lit it, and then turned on the leaf blower, and it acted like a giant, I guess, cigarette or blunt or whatever, and it was just shooting out huge amounts of marijuana smoke into this room. It looked
it's a
like
smoker. It's a human smoker. What do you?
It looked wild.
An interesting thing I saw recently was I think it was either Homeland Security or Border Patrol was looking for a contractor to burn about 1,000 pounds of marijuana an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see how many applications they got.
Oh my gosh. It was they actually, I remember reading the same article, and it was they posted about an hour after posting that or whatnot, stop calling. It was stop calling. There is no job.
But yeah, back to House Bill, I believe it was 420, you said?
Yeah, House Bill 420. So that is the current bill that is in the federal law right now, that it will hopefully go on to becoming a law that will legalize marijuana throughout the United States. Not legalize in the sense of complete legalization, of course, but for the most part, it would make it so that people would not have to worry about marijuana destroying their lives.
So it would alter the criminalization of it.
Yes.
It wouldn't. Would it still be a schedule? What is it? No, not schedule. Well, what's the classification?
Schedule 1. It's a Schedule 1 narcotic right now.
Okay. So
I don't believe it was talked about in the bill about the deschedulation.
It would basically just lower the level of criminal trouble you would be in.
That, and it also sets up trade possibilities.
Okay.
Not personal. It didn't talk about much about international trade, which is realistically what we need to be looking at if Canada's out of weed. We got a lot and they don't have much, so supply and demand says that we got to send it up there. But I mean, even on that, there's some nice government contracts that actually do allow Canadian exports, but they're like lots of security has to go into them, lots of hoops you got to jump over and all this stuff. But right now, currently, if House Bill 420 passes, it would just make it so that everyone's a little bit more on it, a little bit easier about marijuana. It would make it so that we're a legal country for the most part. And it's a big step. It would be a really, really, really big step.
Do you know like how it's sitting in the Senate right now? Like, is it going through a committee in the Senate, or have they picked it up yet? Or is it in limbo like a lot of...
It's in limbo.
Yeah.
It's in limbo, I believe, until the next presidential election for the most part.
Really?
Yeah.
Kind of gotten chogged up in all the other stuff that's going down in Washington.
There's a lot of stuff going down in Washington right now. So it's not like... unfortunately, a lot of these Democratic candidates... I haven't looked into the Republican candidates too much, but a lot of these Democratic candidates...
Republican candidate would... Oh, are you talking
Sorry,
Senate?
my bad. The Republican candidate is the president.
Yeah, I was thinking there's only one here.
The incumbent. I was like, oh yes, but no. The Democrats, they are a lot of them have come out being pro marijuana, talking about how values
complete legalization, or
that or medical properties. But they've come out saying they have smoked, they have experienced it,
Mm-hmm.
and they have it on their ballot for what they want to change in office.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a really good step in the right direction. Even if Trump doesn't do anything with it, it just shows that America is looking forward.
I will say that's one thing that's kind of shocking. I don't remember, of course, my memory is somewhat limited of the time, but the 2012 campaign, I don't remember there being like any discussion of marijuana in the presidential election.
It's really come up as
but
far as
yet the 2016 it popped up, and now in 2020, like everyone's got a stance on it, and that's what's really interesting. Is just in a matter of like 8 years, it's gone from stuff that neither candidate said anything about to now it's one of the major parts of a campaign that you have to address if you want to run.
And I think that comes from with everyone starting to realize the war on drugs is useless.
Yeah,
It's
I kind of agree with that.
what did it do? I mean, it caused a lot of separation between America, between the races. It caused a lot of separation between peers and everyone else. It made everyone fearful. It made everyone see that drugs are this issue.
I mean,
we-
to top it all off, it's not even constitutional.
Exactly.
You know?
First off, we demonized drugs and then put people on opioids and like had crack going through the streets and all this other stuff. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to attack one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's a whole another
It's a
issue.
whole can of worms we were opening up
we
there.
could do another show on that one probably.
All right, it is 10:56. We have about 4 more minutes. We have any bottom of the barrel stuff we want to talk about real quick? I know there's the Joe Biden fiasco.
Joe Biden. I could not believe Trump tweeted out that video of Joe Biden
Oh my goodness, that was
photoshopped
hilarious.
on Joe
And
Biden photoshopped massaging Joe Biden.
Yeah, and CNN running with the Donald Trump shared doctored footage of Joe Biden.
No
And
joke.
like,
No joke.
No
Joe Biden.
joke. If you watch the video of Joe Biden fondling Joe Biden, you might just notice that it's fake. I didn't see it before, but now that CNN pointed it out, I realize it's doctored. Like, goodness.
But anyway,
Like, my respect for CNN went from 0 to 0. Like, you can't go lower
you
than 0.
expected nothing and got change back.
Exactly. I expected nothing, and I was still disappointed. So, but
Let me plug our social media before
yeah,
we
why don't
sign
you
out.
do that? Because we got about 120 seconds left.
All right, so we have a Twitter account and we have a YouTube channel. Our Twitter is Say What UGA. That's Say What UGA. We tweet out right before we go live, about an hour, maybe 10 minutes is the shortest time we've given people with the tweets. We forgot to do it this time, sadly, but we'll stay on top of it. We tweet out the live stream link or the radio station's live webpage. Our YouTube is Say What You Will. You can search us on YouTube, Say What You Will Show. That'll pull up our old live streams or our channel. You can hit the subscribe button, bell notification. You'll know within 3 seconds. I saw it myself when we go live, and you can watch us, watch the pain of the week, and so forth.
Yeah, and we want to thank especially Taylor Schlanger for coming on.
thanks,
We had
guys.
a blast talking about this, and hopefully we can have you on in the future, especially as more events happen and we get updates. I especially am interested to see, how UGA is going to handle this research, whether they create a new department or how all that's going to work. So I'm sure we'll see all that starting in the fall and stuff.
Definitely.
So that'll be really interesting.
Try to get the weed update every now and then.
Definitely.
But I think we'll call it quits there. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been the 11th episode of Say What You Will. See you next week.